Okay, great. I think we're ready to go. Jason or Lori, unless you need me to wait on somebody. If you do, I'll wait. If we're okay, I'll go ahead and start. Okay, I got a thumbs up. Jason, you good? All right, very good. All right. So I want to welcome everybody. Good afternoon. This is the March 7th, 2022 meeting. I'll now call it to order, and I'll ask Councilman Gregory to lead us off with a prayer, if he would.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dear God, guide us to that morning light where love conquers hate and we live as one human world. Pierce evil with goodness and your mercy and grant us grace and love for all. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And so it's been a little while since the Recreation Committee has met. And since the last time we did meet, we have now put the Parks and Recreation Master Plan in front of us. And, lots happened with Parks and Recreation since then. I would like to welcome our new members of the committee, the Recreation Committee, and that's Caroline Parker and Stephen Bowden. Thank you both for joining us. We appreciate it. Welcome. And we look forward to your comments and your input. And of course, we want to thank Council Member Dudley Gregory and Jason Saccharin, as well as Mayor Tecklenburg, for remaining on this committee. As I said, it's an important year for us because we do have the new Parks and Recreation Master Plan, and Parks and Rec have never been busier than they are right now. So we've got a busy agenda, so I want to jump right in. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes for both July 13th, 2021 and July 19th, 2021?
Mr. Chairman.
Properly moved. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, the minutes have been approved. So we have on our agenda next the Friends of the Muni to talk a little bit about our municipal golf course. And we have Troy Miller with you, also Marshall Orman with us, who manages the Muni golf course. And some of you know that Troy played a major role in the Muni, even after it's been renovated, still the most affordable way for our constituents to get out and enjoy the game of golf. It's a real bargain with the city discount. And within 6 months of that course being renovated, our municipal golf course showed up in the national rankings of top municipal golf courses in the United States. I think we were number 19 according to golf.com. And since drawing that national attention, the course has done incredibly well from a financial standpoint. I won't take away from their thunder of talking about that, but the Friends of the Muni, they just want to make sure our golf course continues to do well, and they've got some ideas on how we may be able to continue to improve on that. And I'll let Troy and Marshall talk about that if they would.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Shealy. I appreciate it. If you don't mind, I've got a presentation. I will share my screen if I can do that. Very good. Let me go ahead and get that up. Share screen. All righty, and I will pop that up into full motion. Here we go. Okay. So thank you very much on behalf of the Friends of the Muni. I appreciate the opportunity to come talk a little bit to you about the project as it has happened and where we're headed next with the municipal golf course. And so for those of you who are new to the Recreation Committee and new to council, welcome. And I'm going to give you a quick history of where this project's been and talk a little bit about where we would like to see it go in the future. So without further ado, let me start by giving you a little bit of history here. So the first time that this project was really presented in this fashion, been presented previously in a number of iterations in this fashion, was back in 2016 when the projected costs were about $3 million. When it was originally presented to the city of Charleston, the idea was that it would provide about a 10% return on investment. The original projections and original plan basically was not only a design of the golf course, but also some conceptual budgeting that would help tell you how that was going to be achieved. And a lot of that was predicated on the idea that we were going to create a product that was good enough to come play and not just good enough to play while you were here, and start to drive a little bit more play out of tourism, and basically subsidize the ability for this golf course to continue to be maintained at an improved and elevated level by providing some out-of-town play at a higher rate while maintaining that exceptionally low rate for our residents, which we've been able to continue to do through this process. And so, during that time, back in 2016, the plan was presented. The next step was to go figure out how to source the funding for it. Some of that came through the recreation bond that was passed, I believe, in 2018. And then accommodations tax dollars played a role in the funding, as well as private donations that were raised through the Friends of the Muni over the course of the last several years. In 2019, in October, we had an RFP for the construction of the golf course renovation, and started construction in January of 2020. The golf course opened in December of 2020. The cost ended up coming in about $2.5 million through COVID and some other value engineering items. We decided we cut some items in order to keep that budget in the uncertainty of times with COVID. But what the result has been really, really pleasing and quite astonishing, to be honest. We went from doing 55,000 rounds in 2019 to 67,000 rounds in 2021. We went from about 350 junior players being serviced in camps and lessons to around 1,000 players total in our programs for junior golfers now. As a result of the project, Charleston County was able to greenlight the Woodland Shores drainage improvements that the county has been working on, that will include putting sidewalks in Woodland Shores Road, primarily because of the improved drainage that was taking place in concert with the design and development of the golf course and redesign that allowed for some more stormwater improvements for not just the golf course, but for the surrounding areas as well. And late last year, we were also recognized by the Fairways Foundation with a grant for environmental sustainability in golf and environmental design in golf that will allow us to go and continue that movement and plant some more wetland plants and the aquatic shelves of some of the large ponds that were built during the course of the construction. So again, the project results from a dollars perspective have been incredibly positive. We went from a situation where typically over the course of the last 10 to 12 years, Charleston Municipal has lost somewhere in the neighborhood of $50,000 to $100,000 annually on a net operating income basis. In 2021, the golf course did $1.2 million more in revenue than it's ever done before, and ended up with a profit of $550,000. So a $650,000 improvement over the 2019 numbers. So incredibly well done by Marshall and his staff to be able to operate and create this generation of revenue that has never existed before, and really just shows, what an incredible project this has been for the city. Going back and thinking about that 10% return we talked about in 2016, that pales in comparison to the kind of returns that we've seen within 12 to 14 months of the opening. And so what were some of the key factors that were associated with that? Certainly fewer weather days due to the improved drainage. The golf course typically had to close for several days after we would have heavy rains or significantly elevated tides in the past because of the drainage issues. All of those have been alleviated. Obviously, there's been some increased interest in golf through COVID, so that plays a part in this as well. The quality of the course and the conditions certainly have driven a different client. I think more interest and exciting about playing the golf course. And then the national and international acclaim that Council Member Shealy mentioned that has come to fruition because of this has certainly been a lot. So here's a few of those things. Back at the end of 2020, we were named one of the top 10 courses in the world to be seen in 2021 by Golf Magazine. And then shortly thereafter, in April, we're named the number 19th municipal golf course in the country. And also in that listing, that makes us the top rated municipal golf course in the southeastern United States. We've also, because of this, been able to be awarded several large prestigious events that will bring heads to beds in Charleston, including the South Carolina State High School Championships this May, and later this fall, the South Carolina Public Links Championship, which is a statewide event that is to celebrate public golf and public golfers around the state, and give them their own championship for those that aren't members of private clubs. And I would encourage you, if you haven't, a quick Google search will uncover a lot more of these types of some of the coverage that we've seen. One of the ones that I think is probably my favorite is one that was written by a golf magazine writer that talks about the community aspect of Muni and what he stumbled across by coming and hanging out for half a day, trying to get on the golf course and waiting for a tee time to open up. And it's just some of the people he encountered and the sense of community that Charleston Municipal provides. So that's where our project has gone. And from a junior programs perspective, I mentioned the exponential growth in players. Part of that is because part of this project included the creation of a short game area, which gave us more physical space to be able to host these kids. So through the U.S. Kids Junior programs that Boykin Powers and his crew are running over at Charleston Municipal, and through partnerships with the First Tee and PGA Hope and For the Ladies and soon to be Western Golf Association, our span of touching junior players in Charleston has accelerated tremendously. And now where we find ourselves is still needing some expanded space in different ways, as well as the need for more instructors, because our limiting factor today is no longer space of golf as much as it is instructors to be able to handle the number of kids that want to be involved in these programs. So I mentioned the Western Golf Association. Another thing that we're honored to be involved with in starting in April is the Western Golf Association's Evans Scholar Caddy program will begin this spring, where we'll have 8 to 12 rising ninth graders will come and start caddying at Muni, and it will be a job for them where they will be able to earn some bucks on the side, as well as an opportunity for them to earn a full scholarship, including housing, to several schools throughout the United States. This program is over almost 100 years old, just same age as Charleston Municipal is, and has had a huge footprint in the northern states, the Northeast, the upper Midwest for almost a century. And we are really pioneering the Southeast. And this is an opportunity for kids in our market to have an opportunity to gain a full scholarship in college in a life-changing way. So we're very excited about this. And one of the things that the Western Golf Association also, from a core mission values perspective, they share that same mission of diversity, equity, and inclusion that we have within the Friends of the Muni. So it's a very good fit of a partnership for us to bring to Charleston Municipal. Now I want to talk a little bit about the future and how we are trying to improve and some of the things that Friends of the Muni want to see done. From a tee sheet management perspective, we really need a management software built for golf so that we can increase non-resident accessibility to the golf course and ease of use for everyone, including our residents. We want to continue to do on-course enhancements to elevate that experience, to continue to drive the interest that we have seen over the last year on the golf course, whether that be cart path repairs, bathrooms on the golf course, little things that are just going to continue, landscaping and continued drainage, all those things that can be productive not only for the golf course, but the community at large. Those are the kind of things we want to see continue. And then the big projects, the new and expanded facilities. What we really want to do is see Muni become the community center that we've always felt that it should be. And so one of those is a pavilion at the short game area that could provide a home for these junior programs. It also provides a restroom on the golf course, as well as a snack bar on the golf course that will generate additional revenue from where we've been today. And then it'll also be utilized as an event space that can be utilized pre and post golf so that we can, again, generate more revenue than we've even seen today. So just to go back on the revenue side of this for just a second, our original projection showed, that these changes might create a $250,000 to $300,000 annual operating income for the Muni. And like I said, we were at $550,000 this year or in 2021. I think some of the shortcomings that we're talking about in here are opportunities to not only see the same kind of return annually, but also increase that return to 750, 800, up to $1 million, just by doing a better job of managing the tee sheet and having the tools at hand to do that. I believe that we'll generate the proper amount of out-of-town play, given the demand we have, at the proper rate, and be able to maintain those lower rates for our residents. And by providing things like an event space for businesses and community groups to have events at the golf course, we'll have the ability to also generate event space revenue, more food and beverage revenue. The snack bar creates a huge benefit for the golf, as well as to help with pace of play, also generate more revenue, but also keep people from having to go back to the clubhouse during their round. The clubhouse is the largest project that the Friends of the Muni is looking to undertake now, where we would create that community center and a gathering place that could be utilized by residents for special events, for community meetings. It can also accommodate growing programs with the juniors that could include some after-school tutoring. It could also include some space to be able to really accommodate this growing Evans Scholar Caddy program opportunity that we have at Muni. So all of these things play a part in creating the environment that we're looking to create and the sense of community that we're looking to create. And what I'm going to talk about now is a little bit of the two types of capital that we're trying to create here. The social capital. For y'all has been our rallying cry since 2017 when we got started, and it means for everyone. And it's about expanding the reach of municipal golf in Charleston. We also, so a big part of this is just trying to positively affect more lives, juniors and otherwise, in our community. And I think providing spaces to do that is a big part of it, creating community involvement from folks. And then obviously this new addition of giving kids an opportunity to earn full scholarships. This is the kind of social capital that we want to create as Friends of the Muni. From the city's perspective, the financial capital and the ability to create a return on this investment is also significant with each of these things that is being suggested. Obviously, there's a return on investment on bringing an on-course snack bar and increasing that revenue. The event spaces will provide additional revenue, both from food and beverage as well as event fees and non-golf generated revenue as well. So there's financial capital to be had in everything that we're talking about. And so to me, again, one of the big takeaways for each of the council members here, for city council, and for all of our citizens is that what we really want to see is the continual improvement of the golf course and the facilities can continue to drive this high interest amongst our visitors, whilst still creating that affordable, accessible product for our residents. So my feeling on it is this is very much the British model of having a great local golf course that is accessible and affordable for our residents, and we can control the rate based upon the demand by our non-residents and continue to see that rate grow and basically limit those rounds to a level that allows for the amount of accessibility that is appropriate for our residents. So I think, there's a lot of open sky in front of us here to do a lot of great things. Our next steps at Friends of the Muni are going to be to generate a plan and formulate how to implement these future improvements. And again, in the same way that this was presented in 2016, provide not only a plan for what we want to see done, but also the return on the investment financially and why it's a good idea and an undertaking for the city to look at this. As part of that plan, we need to get an updated MOU with the city to talk about what the goals of the Friends of the Muni are, and make sure that we're meeting that mission on a regular basis. And part of this plan will then be the same program we had 5 years ago when we first started, of trying to identify the appropriate means of funding of these projects, and the large projects as well as the smaller ones. And so these are the things that we're looking to do and plan to come back to you as council over the course of the next several months to talk to you about what our plan is, what that return on investment looks like, and understand the value of what you've been able to create as a council by approving this project and what I believe to be really just a tremendous asset for the city of Charleston today. So I'm hoping that to have the support of council for a lot of these conversations going forward. And certainly I think that starts here with this recreation committee, understanding that we want this to be a crown jewel of the city's parks and recreation department. So thank you very much, Mr. Shealy. I appreciate it. I hope I kept in reasonable time.
Did great, Troy. Thank you very much. Mayor Tecklenburg.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just wanted to briefly say what a remarkable improvement. This has all led to the Charleston Municipal Course, Charleston being the oldest place in America where golf was played. And also note that we were the first desegregated course in South Carolina back in the late 50s, early 60s. A course with notable history. So taking care of this gym is the right thing to do. And I know the renovation we did, there were a lot of hands involved, our staff, Marshall, Laurie, the Rick was very involved, but the community really pitched in, the Friends of the Muni, and I could go on naming people, but I'll just close and say it really was under Troy's leadership and his generosity of his time and effort. So the fact that he's remaining this involved is a godsend to us, and I'm looking forward to what they come back to us. The numbers are beyond what we thought the improvements would be, and and I bet more out-of-towners are playing, which helps justify some of those hospitality dollars going into future improvements as well. So I just want to say thank you, Troy, and thank you to the Friends of the Muni for all y'all done. It's been a great community service.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Shade.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not on this committee, but I am on the Municipal Golf Course Commission, which I missed last time. And I just want to echo some of the comments that have already been made. And I played out there. I tried to play out there recently, I should say. My golf game is not the best in the world. Councilman Bowden is a pretty good golfer. He would appreciate the course. I know very well, but it is a beautiful course. And the photographs that Troy had on his presentation just don't do justice how pretty that course really is. You get lost just standing out there and enjoying that. But Troy, I just want to tell you and Marshall, y'all are doing a great job out there. I support all those things that you had just mentioned about the pavilion and the clubhouse. I think that's the next generation that this golf course needs to go in. And whatever we can do on city council to help make that a reality, you got my support for that. I would ask if you wouldn't mind if you could share that presentation and email us a copy of that. I think I want to share that with some of my constituents so they can see what is sort of the dream out there for the golf course. Thank you for doing that. Really do appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Shade. Anyone else? Mr. Mayor, I guess my question is next steps here. I mean, should they be bringing something to our ad hoc budget committee, or where should we go from here on talking about an MOU and those types of things?
Well, to revise the MOU, I would think we would work with our legal department and then bring it back to Recreation Committee. Would be a.
We sent them a template.
Yeah.
And we're going to work together to try to develop something in the next couple of months.
Okay, so I understand we're working on that already. Okay. And then on whatever specific capital improvements are recommended at first, I know Troy will work with Jason and Laurie, and they'll feed that up to our capital projects committee, before it would come back to Ways and Means, but it would come back to council on both counts, the MOU on one side and any capital improvements that we have on the other. I think kind of a two-track process.
Okay, very good. Anything else on this item with the municipal golf course? Well, Troy and Marshall, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Great presentation. A lot of good information for us. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you all for
And if
having
there's
us.
nothing else there, I'll move on to our next item. I see Lance Tyner is on the line with us, or he was. Let's see, is he still? Yeah, is he still on? I don't know. Lance, are you on?
Yes, I am. I apologize. We've had a little bit of internet issues, and we were actually going to have someone else present, but they couldn't get on. So I'm gonna do the presentation.
Okay.
And let me see if I can share this screen. Is that visible for everyone?
All I see is your name up there, Lance, but yeah, we'd be glad if you would like to do that. And while Lance is doing that, just to let you know, he is a city resident. He happens to live in District 2, which is the district I represent. He's an avid tennis player, and he reached out to me about some things that he wanted to talk about with the Maybank Tennis Center on James Island. And Lori met with Lance and some of his fellow players and about 2 weeks ago, and I felt it might be good for him to communicate to us a little bit here on the Recreation Committee. So Lance, I see your face on there. I appreciate you reaching out and taking a few minutes.
Okay, let's see. I apologize. It should be. Does it show up now?
No, I don't see it.
I apologize. My screen is not functioning. If you want to go to someone else, then I'll try to resolve whatever this issue is.
Okay. Well, we can certainly go to the next agenda item. I do see Fern White on, and about a month ago, I was invited to watch some pickleball that was being played on Sunday afternoon out at Bees Landing, and I saw how they were functioning and what they were doing there. And they play every Sunday and they play during the week some, but that particular day, there were about 38 pickleball players on that afternoon playing on 4 pickleball courts, or 2 converted tennis courts, I guess. So anyway, I thought it was a good idea to bring Fern on and allow her to take a few minutes to tell us a little bit about what's going on with pickleball.
Thank you, Chairman Shuey, and thank you for inviting me to speak on behalf of the pickleball residents in the city of Charleston. We appreciate the efforts of our elected officials and the various departments who are working with us to help answer our immediate needs and future needs. I've prepared a very short presentation, which I'd like to share right now, and I give you a bird's eye view of all that. Let me jump right over there. Let's see. It should be there. Are you seeing the screen?
Yeah.
I haven't started it yet.
Yeah, I can see it. It's kind of in presenter mode, but yes.
Yeah, from the beginning. There we go. Okay. So just some basic facts is how much this sport is exploding across the country. We now have in 2020 identified 4.8 million players. It grew almost at 40% over the last 2 years. It's a highly competitive and yet very social sport. We welcome, it's usually open play, so we welcome our local residents as well as people who are visiting Charleston. So this presents a lovely interface and a good position for our exposure to people and their impression of Charleston. We also welcome all ages, and let me just get onto the next slide. So basically, the sport is played by all ages. Ages could be 8, and I know Laura Yarsborough is working with one of our youth instructors downtown, ages 8 through as much as 88. It can be played on tennis courts that have lines similar, but not quite the same dimensions. So at Bees Landing, and the top photo shows Bees Landing, we have been, what you saw, Chairman Shealy, we were given permission to chalk in lines, which is a bit of work. But our games were played there. And we do see a lot of times upwards of 30 odd people on just 2 tennis courts. So we have 2 nets set up on each tennis court. So I'm going to bring you through a little bit of data just to give you a bird's eye view of this. I'm doing a comparison here of the city population versus the dedicated facilities in various cities. And you can quickly see, scanning this page, that we have, Charleston has the highest population density, the absolutely lowest dedicated pickleball courts, and the highest amount of tennis courts, which is pretty nice, because from our perspective, that doesn't detract a whole lot when we want to say, can we address our immediate need? And can we get a few of these, share a few of these dedicated tennis courts, so that we might also enjoy the same space. So space utilization is an interesting discussion as well. And this example is on 2 tennis courts within the same time of about 14 hours a day for matches. So what you're seeing is 2 tennis courts. And this is showing, the first one is showing an example of 2 tennis courts, and the other one is pickleball, which I have conservatively listed as 6 courts. So putting 3 on each tennis court. We could do as much as 4, which is what has been configured on Thomas Johnson Park on James Island. So, but conservatively, these numbers are based on 3 on each court. So for tennis, we're seeing 8 players. For pickleball, with 3 courts on each tennis, we're seeing 24 players. Matches, approximate time for tennis is about 90 minutes. For pickleball, about 50 minutes. The same time frame, tennis will have 18 matches. Pickleball will have 102 matches. And so the total players during the same period of time on those same 2 courts, tennis has a throughput of 72 versus 408 players, which is 5.5 times as many players that can use that same space. So that's a very impressive, strong statement. We can have a lot more people enjoying our public facilities if we have that capability. When players look to places to play when they travel, that represents a fair amount of potential revenue dollars for localities that offer dedicated courts. Now, in this example, we might be talking dedicated, but we also might be talking dual use. And so one of the concerns that I hear is that some tennis pros worry about losing clients for tennis lessons, but they can easily learn to teach pickleball to increase their client base, which is what has happened over at Collins Park in North Charleston very successfully. So the criteria for pickleball venues is the same as tennis locations, centrally located to the population, not restricted by traffic, accessible from all points, from Ravenel to Johns Island to West Ashley to James Island. It's or even off of 526. Everyone is looking for convenience and access to courts. The amenities also are very meaningful, as it is with tennis. Lighting for those people who play the game who are not retired, as old as me. So we have a very young base as well, and they usually play in the evening. And so they require lighting. And of course, restrooms are really appreciated. And perhaps benches or a waiting area that's shaded for the hot sun. We do have some additional criteria for the venue and recommendations for dual use and for dedicated. The image you see here is a picture of the Collins Park in North Charleston. And they have a huge throughput problem. These are 10 dedicated courts. and they still have a massive amount of weight. They hold tournaments at this location, which brings them significant revenue. And so to be converted is that one tennis court you see blocked out, where they will add additional courts to try to alleviate some of the problem. They also have a huge, lovely indoor facility with that shares basketball and tennis and pickleball courts. So same as tennis, the design and the construction, the fencing, all of those things still hold true for pickleball. They're very close in their requirements. And the environment, to be safe, to have good air quality, low noise traffic, since it's so social. People generally, when they're waiting for a game, go into conversations, and even maybe some practice drills on the side. To bring you to future and current state, to give you an indication of how this industry is pivoting, the U.S. Tennis Association is now involved in promoting pickleball through tournaments, through leagues, instructions, building facilities where they're teaching it, and also doing certifications. There is a new complex going up in Opeka, which they're foreseeing $2 million in tax revenue alone, boosting their hotels and restaurants and other areas and other businesses. This is a picture of the Billie Jean Tennis Center, where they're going to have the Associated Pickleball Professional Tournament this year. So when we look at dual use courts, some cities have worked to try to accommodate both. And you can see from both these two pictures, the lower one is a light green blended line on a darker green, which looks very much like your junior tennis lines. And the other one is the same concept of a lighter blue on a darker blue. So this is a picture of Bees Landing, and they have, oddly enough, a fantastic area which would accommodate 10 pickleball courts on a level property. The lighting is already existing, the facilities are existing. So we would have a reduced construction cost compared to other potential values or venues. So the thing that the community is suggesting is an immediate compromise solution for our residents with a look forward to the future. So the needs are such that we're asking that the 3 of the 6 tennis courts are lined. And mostly we're using the remote courts. When Chairman Shearley was out, he saw us all on the 2 remote courts. This would result in a more equitable distribution of resources. So when we have 8 pickleball players versus 2 tennis players, we can have, shared resources instead of the pickleball sport being pushed to the side and not being able to have access to a public park. And so a lot of this infrastructure is already in place. And the pickleball community feels so strongly about it that they are willing to chip in and help fund some of these lines for this particular site. And this would help alleviate a potential cost to the city. Recognizing that this is a minimal solution for an immediate time frame to be supplemented with an outlook to future needs to accommodate both our youth communities and to help the city of Charleston for accumulated revenue and growth. Because certainly with all the tournaments across the country, players come from all different states to a dedicated court venue for tournaments. And Charleston is certainly lagging and behind in what we're able to provide both residents and for our own revenue attainment. So I think I'm probably running over time, and I'm going to wrap up and just say a thank you, Chairman Shealy, and to all the members here and everyone on this call for allowing me to present this today. And If you need any more questions answered, please do feel free to contact me. I do have some presentations I can provide a little bit more detail for current and for our future outlook.
Thank you, Ms. White. We appreciate that. Very good presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any questions or comments? Councilmember Bowden.
Thank you, and thanks for that presentation. I will tell you that after flooding and traffic, things that I totally expected to be hearing about from constituents, I think pickleball might be the third thing I've heard most about. So I confess that I did not realize quite the groundswell that's out there, but I think you've accurately identified that there is one. So I think this is a great thing to be in our heads moving forward as we try to accommodate both groups.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Mine is a question to Jason as it relates to the master plan and whether or not this fits into the overall master plan that the city developed.
Yeah, so we did hear a lot of feedback about pickleball in the public engagement portions of the master plan. And the master plan does identify needs for the citywide. We met last week with our consultants to start the implementation phase of the master plan. So we will be working with them over the coming months to take the very long list of needs and then try to bring back a reasonable list of projects to be funded by something in some source in the future for projects to come. So yes, it certainly was an item in the plan, and it's addressed there. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason. I guess I have one question. This would be a temporary situation, but I know we have the senior center that obviously is a membership situation. When I went out that day to watch pickleball, I ran by the senior center to see, what was going on. Obviously, there was no cars there because it's closed on Sunday. It's closed all weekend and closed in the evening. I think it's $70 to be a member, I think, at the senior center. But
that's the Waring Center?
The Waring Senior Center, yes, in West Ashley over by St. Francis Hospital. I think it's $70 a year for Charleston County residents, I think, over 50 years old, it's 50 and older. But I guess my question is, and I know we work with Roper St. Francis on this, but would there be a possibility of extending those pickleball court hours? One of the problems they have is the senior center closes at 7 and everything's locked up at 7 o'clock. So everybody has to be gone. A lot of people that play pickleball work during the day, and so they have the weekends and they have their evenings free, but they're not able to play at the senior center because they're working while the senior center's open. But do we know if there would be any opportunity at all to extend those hours of membership for even if it was just the outdoors and not the indoors?
Councilmember Shealy, that's a great comment, and one that we're right now talking to Roper St. Francis about operating costs. They've been really hard hit at the Waring Senior Center from COVID. And so their revenues are down. But I have asked that question, is there something we could do that would allow use of those courts by members, or having some kind of separate membership for evenings or something? There's no lights there. So those courts to be maximized would have to be lighted. But that is an example, I think, of the kind of thing that Ms. White was alluding to. Where can we do things better than we already have? Or where can we really maximize some of those experiences? So, West Ashley, Mary Utzi, right there on Orange Grove, those two tennis courts have lights, and they now have pickleball lines that are permanently on them. There's 2 tennis courts in a very central location in West Ashley that are lighted and can be used anytime. I was looking at Bees Landing Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings. from 10:30 to 12:30, we have pickleball in our gym as well. So we've got an indoor pickleball situation going on. So we're trying to look at creative ways. We're offering pickleball in the mornings at all of our gyms, Daniel Island, Bees Landing, James Island, and downtown at the city gym. The mayor had worked hard to get us some money for 11 courts to get pickleball, permanent pickleball lines put on them last year. Jason's crew was able to handle that through capital projects. So we did expand some. Do we have a long way to go? Absolutely. I know we do, but we're trying to do that. We're trying to grow it. As Ms. White mentioned, the city is working with Des Brown. He is doing pickleball lessons on the east side right now. Our kids from St. Julian, Divine, and Martin Park are able to come in and learn that sport, and it's at no cost to them. So we're trying to do some different things. But I do think that talking to Roper St. Francis about the Waring Senior Center is an option, and one that I've already opened the conversation to.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I know I went, it's Councilman Shade's district, but I went over to over toward Northbridge Park Shore Park. And obviously there's those courts that were old racquetball or something courts with the walls up and everything. You know, so if we could look there, I know, you know, we still have a park that's unused. It's Woodland Road over there in West Ashley as well. And I don't know if we have more extra space for something like that at West Ashley Park or Bees Landing, but you know, I would certainly hope that we would consider all of those, you know, all of those areas as we look. So, Councilman Shade.
Well, since you mentioned my district, Councilman Shealy, I'll have to first give a shout out to Jason and Lori for the work that they've been doing over at Park Shore. It's been a wonderful transformation on all the work they've done over there. And you're absolutely correct. And Jason and I have had that conversation about converting those old walled area for racquetball into pickleball courts. I've asked him to look into that to see the feasibility of knocking those walls down and trying to figure out if we can add some pickleball courts there. So we've already been putting our pointy little heads together to see if that's possible, and it'd be a great opportunity. That park has generated a lot more interest recently, and I appreciate the work that the city has done on that for us. So thanks for bringing that out to our attention. But yes, I would support putting a pickleball court at those old areas. I think that those walls have been used for something more nefarious than athletic activity, but they're unfortunately.
Yeah, well, and if we can generate activity, it's just good, clean, fun activity, family activity. It'll certainly be good for that, for that area. And that backs up to the, you know, to the Elks Lodge too. And a lot of these pickleball players are Elks members and things like that. So
absolutely,
that's an extra bonus.
I would like to just put forth that we have a two-thrust concern. One is for immediate need, and the other venues that you're referring to are for probably future use. I'm going to try to share my screen again just for a moment, show you something. So this is Mariupsi, and when they line the courts, they actually had to pick the roller up to get that the lines in. They're not ideal. It doesn't support the high social nature of the community. So it's not really used all that much. Would have been helpful if the community was consulted. And this is Park Shore. I think that the property on Bees certainly has a higher potential and less cost factor than looking at and faster turnaround than looking at tearing this down. But I understand wanting to optimize and leverage the properties around. I would encourage all of you to help us and help the resources used if we are able to be used as consultants to help your return on investment, because worst case is doing something and it not getting used.
Okay.
I just wanted to put that out there.
All right. Well, thank you, Ms. White.
Thank you all.
Okay. Councilman Gregory, are you trying to get my attention? I don't know.
Yes.
Okay.
Just for us to get a sense from Laurie or Jason, typically what would the cost be to develop a court from scratch or to convert something existing?
So the last courts we built down at Moultrie Playground, the 2 pickleball courts were about $100,000. That's starting from scratch. Now that project was completed prior to COVID, so all of those numbers are going to be different today. So I don't have a current new cost for that off the top of my head, but we can certainly get that information. Converting courts is not a huge expense, but we just have to identify locations. I know Lori kind of might have some input on that.
The other thing I'll add is that Moultrie doesn't have lights, Jason. So that 100,000 is without lights. And I think if we build pickleball courts, we need to definitely put lights on them, just like we do basketball courts and tennis courts and other areas. So, and then it's a matter of looking at where we have amenities, where we have space, and then the other programs that are ongoing and how that's going to impact. If we're able to talk to Lance, I think he's going to share some concerns that the Maybank Tennis Center members have raised, and they are a membership that pay fees and dues and everything else. So I think they've got another side of the equation that has to be looked at. But obviously we need to have more. COVID did nothing if not bring out more pickleball, more tennis, more runners, more golfers. We're seeing that in everything we're talking about right now. We're back to higher numbers in our youth sports than we were before COVID again. So we're back on Jason's fields with almost 6,000 kids this spring. So it's really growing all over. It's stretching us all very thin.
Thanks for that info. I just wanted everybody to get a sense of what we're talking about in terms of cost.
Thank you, Councilman. Mayor Tecklenburg?
So we were lucky there. That's the cost without the lights, but it just so happened either we were smart or lucky that we built those 2 pickleball courts right underneath the old baseball field lights. So we were able to provide lights, but not as part of the $100,000. So I just thought I would share that. And with all due respect to the presentation, I do want to acknowledge, yes, we need more courts. And I guess it's easy, Ms. White, to for the immediate need to do the conversions or additions. I mean, that's why we added lines to 7 courts last year, was to try to help fulfill that immediate need. But y'all, I want to just put this out there. This shouldn't be a tennis versus pickleball battle. This ought to be just the city trying to provide more facilities that our citizens want to use. And I admit that puts us in a time crunch given cost and development of a project. So I think we got to look at every hard surface out there that's not being utilized, and existing places where we can add lights. Like, I think that's a great idea about the Waring Tennis Center. We had a couple of hard surfaces down at Martin Park. We recently converted them to pickleball, and they're being well utilized. I ride by there, I see people out there all the time. The Park Shore project, I would think, won't take us a long time. I hope not. And Jason, I think is already working on what it might take for us to knock those walls down. If you need a bulldozer driver, I'll sign up. I just inquired with Ben Navarro, who's going to be operating the Charleston Tennis Center over on Daniel Island, to see if they could do some multi-use over there. But the one other idea that I had recently There were some old basketball courts underneath I-26. It's hard surface already. There's concrete there. You know, it doesn't drain great, I admit it. So maybe after a big rain, you'd need a couple of days to let it dry off before you could play again. But with some portable nets, I think we could put 4 to 6 courts down there pretty easily if Ms. White's supporters would be willing to help us put some nets in place and temporary lines down. I'd certainly welcome y'all to come take a look at that space with us and see what you think. So anybody got any ideas of some unused hard surface out there? We ought to take a look at it and try to add as many courts as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you, Ms. White, and you know, appreciate great presentation, a lot of great information. We appreciate it, and obviously, we're going to continue to work toward coming up with some solutions here. So, thank you so much. And is Lance Tyner back on? Is Lance on? Let's see him. If Lance comes back on, we can certainly go back to him, but I'm going to kind of move forward and see if we can get an update from Jason and Lori on the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, which includes Enterprise Manager, which I know they're working on, and some other things in there. So either one of you, whichever. Thank you.
So like I said earlier, Lori and I have met with our consultant team to begin the implementation phase of their contract. And we'll be scheduling meetings over the up and coming months with BFRC and our finance staff, Amy and Matt, to kind of talk about the future and how we can start the implementation of the Parks and Rec Master Plan. It all takes funding, as you know, and so we'll be having more reported out on that, and we will come back to you with the consultants for a presentation to the committee after we have had time to start getting into the nuts and bolts of the implementation and coming back with some proposals for the committee.
Okay, very good.
Jason, I'll add, Councilmember Shealy, we're going to be meeting on the 23rd of March with BFRC and our consultants, and they would like to come back to you. The consultants would like to come back to the Standing Rec Committee in April with an update, with hopefully some really some more information. As everyone said, we are accepting applications for the Enterprise Manager account, that position. I'm going to start interviews next week with Mr. O'Rourke's assistants. And he's got several other items that he wants us to start working on internally as staff as we start biting off some of this big project. But it's good to see it moving forward, and I'm excited that Jason and I get to work on it right now with you.
Very good. Well, thank you, Lori. Mayor Tecklenburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm glad Ms. White's still on the line. I just heard back from Ben. They have 4 permanent pickleball courts at the Daniel Island Tennis Center, and can transition 2 more tennis courts, so they could come up with a total of 8 courts over there. So for what it's worth, that's more than what we had now.
And that is wonderful. I don't know if residents from Johns Island and Ravenel and West Ashley would find that amount of travel acceptable, but certainly people out in that area would be thrilled. I appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am. We'll ask them to go ahead and do that.
Great, thank you. Any questions on master plan or from anyone? Then I thought we would kind of go through some of our parks. I know that there's a lot of updates on Stoney Field, so if we could maybe start with that, and we'll kind of go down the list from there.
I'll jump right in here. So Stoney Field, as many of you may be aware, and if you're not, that project renovation was in cooperation with the Charleston County School District. So they conducted the portion of converting the field into a synthetic turf field and getting the track, the practice track completed. That work is complete, and we are working to finalize a few remaining punch list items and closeout documents on their portion of the work. They're also taking on a water line fix to the building. Right now, there's no water to the home stands where all of our facilities are. So CCSD is taking that on, and they should have their contractor in there pretty soon to run a new water line. The city's portion of the work that you'll see going on right now is the parking lot work, new entry plaza, and new fencing that goes around the field and along Fishburne Street. As the contractor got into that work, our neighbors, the Army Corps of Engineers, saw some work happening, and we're a little bit concerned about an issue with the old landfill cap from the early 70s. It was nothing that everybody knows there's a landfill, formerly a landfill there. So we're working through some contingency items and some stormwater issues with regards to that cap. We're anticipating that could cause some delay. So we have to get all of that, some new design to kind of accommodate the Corps' requirements with how the water comes from the renovated parking area and filters through in order to protect that cap on the landfill. So we've also conducted some work in the home stands itself. As you all have probably seen, when we first started this work, we fixed all the spall repairs. We resealed all of the areas where the rebar was corroding and cracking through the existing concrete. So all of that's been sealed, painted, and reinvigorated to give it a little bit more lifespan. All of the stands were resealed, new seating has been installed. All the lights have been upgraded to LED light fixtures. And so we're really excited about getting that project open. We're still have meetings with the Corps of Engineers, so we haven't figured out a final solution on that yet. But the contractor has not stopped work, and they continue to progress. Moving right along to Carr Richardson Park over in the Asheville, Maryville neighborhoods. That site and building construction is ongoing with an anticipated completion of early May. So we're working through getting the building finalized, and the site work and more landscaping should be conducted soon. Any questions on Stoney or Carr Richardson?
Any questions, anyone? I went over to Carl Richardson right before the meeting, and man, it is coming along. It's looking very nice. What a gorgeous piece of property. That's going to be awesome when they finish it. It's going to be great.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty neat. So moving right along, Fort Pemberson is on the agenda. For those of you who don't know, Fort Pemberton's in Riverland Terrace. It's about historically it's an old Civil War fortification. It took us about 2 years through multiple scenarios with the Greenbelt program and the Conservation Fund. We were able to purchase that land. It has about 270 linear feet along the Stono River, 2 existing docks. So it's really set up to be an incredible sunset view. So we're working with the neighborhood association right now to schedule some community engagement, hopefully in the next month, to kind of get some more feedback. We've already met with a subcommittee on 2 different occasions to walk the site and talk about ideas. So we're trying to bring it back to the full neighborhood association to get some new ideas. We submitted for a Land and Water Conservation Fund grant that came through City Council at one of your last meetings. Matching that grant request was $261,000, matching it with the current Greenbelt funds that are awarded for the project. We should know sometime in September if we're awarded those dollars. So hopefully we are, and those combined funds will provide for a very substantial first phase pass at getting that property opened up to the public. Once it took us 2 years to purchase that land, and then COVID struck, and so it's been a little bit of a challenge to get back out into the public, but we're raring to go to get those meetings scheduled and get that engagement and get some good ideas going. So number D, letter D, WPAL Park. We don't have any current activity as from a project related point of view on that site. So there really is no update, and those are the items that you had listed on the list. Happy to answer any questions that you may have or anything else you may be thinking about.
Thank you very much. Any council member Caroline Parker?
Yes, hi, thank you. So Mr. Kronsberg, kind of back, I'm kind of going a little backwards, but will you have any updates or proposals from that master plan that may indicate how we can go after or utilize private sector funds to help improve or build new rec centers? Will there be any advice given in that regard, or?
Partnerships are always a plus, right? I don't have anything off the top of my head that we can talk about that with our consultants when we kick off the implementation phase of the master plan.
Sure, that's sort of my ask there, I guess, is my my question is just maybe asking those consultants, since we already are going to have them on board, that maybe we can talk about how we can utilize the private sector into, we know that, we need new rec centers everywhere. So this might be an avenue that we can approach, right? So maybe just getting some data from them and that way giving me and our communities some advice on how to maybe approach some of those things.
Sure.
Okay. I was curious, I know it's not on, well, I'll hit Fort Pemberton first. So Fort Pemberton, you're saying maybe September being open to the public? There's no way that.
No, that's when we hear back about the grant we applied for.
Okay, but so, opening to the public when?
So right now we have, we got to get this community engagement completed. We don't have any funding to do full-blown capital project style planning. So what we were going to try to do, and hopefully we get the grant, is to work with our in-house staff in the neighborhood, come up with a conceptual phase 1 opening plan, and then figure out how to fund that work to get it open. Right now, there are no improvements on the site. Okay. And it's not really, it's an old residence. So it's not really safe to open it up to the public yet.
Right, no walkable paths, because I think you said there were docks in place.
That's right. There are 2 existing docks. They need some work.
Okay.
We did a little bit of work to one of them last year, but they're not ready for public access yet.
Okay, understood.
They were residential in character when they were constructed, and so they need some work.
Okay. My last question is, I know it wasn't on the agenda, but just the Harborview, I apologize, I don't know the name, it's in my district, but the Harborview Road at Fort Johnson Park. I know the mayor mentioned that there were some funds given to that park. Is there any update there?
That's right. So we have a PARD grant for that location to come in and refurbish that playground equipment. Over the past, I'd say since 2012 anyway, we've been really working hard on upgrading some of our old and outdated playground equipment. Over 50 locations around the city. We've got 6 of them left to kind of give a little bit of a refresher. So Harborview Fort Johnson is the next one. We're working through quotes through the vendors right now, and should have something soon so we can get that cooking. I don't have a hard date on it yet, but I can get back with you on that.
Okay, and do those quotes automatically come through committee first, or do you just move forward with them?
So typically we work with the neighborhood association to kind of say, all right, this is what it looks like. Here are the colors. Is everybody good with that? And then it comes through bids and purchases.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Jason.
Yes, sir. Just
as a follow-up to Councilman Parker's question, could you talk a little bit about the public-private partnership between Bishop Gadsden and the city? And in addition, the public-public partnership between the town of James Island and the city to create a park on James Island most recently.
Sure. So we've been working with Bishop Gadsden. Again, COVID kind of derailed it a little bit. It's back though. Bishop Gadsden has purchased the property that is between the Bishop Gadsden land proper and Ferguson Village Park on Ferguson Road there. So as part of that land, a lot of it's wet between our park and their property, but adjacent to our little parking area, there is a small portion of Highland. So we're working through a license agreement or a lease agreement. I'm not sure the details on that. Legal's working on that to have access to that and expand the Ferguson Park a little bit. So that'll take some work there, but that is a great example of a public and private partnership there. So Bishop Gadsden is giving us use of that land at no cost to the city. And so we look forward to some park improvements there as well. And then to the town of James Island, we've worked with them on a joint greenbelt application for that new park purchase. And I'm drawing a blank at the name of it right now. What is the name of the street there?
Brantley?
Brantley, right. So we bought the Brantley Park 50-50 with town greenbelt funds and city greenbelt funds, and the town is going to be constructing a small park at that location. And I know that they're working through their plans, and hopefully there'll be something there soon.
And finally, Jason, the public-private partnership that we've been working on Longboro now since 2014, 2015. Can you give sort of an update on that? I think Edmund may be on the line. I know we've ran into some brick walls there, but just to give the new members some sense of the kinds of public-private partnership and public-public partnerships that we have been engaged in, which really piggybacks on Council Member Parker's question, because I think it's a good one.
Yeah, so the Longboro scenario is ongoing. That's certainly true. We're trying to work with OCRM to determine how to permit a public dock there. We're working with the neighborhood association along with the OCRM to determine what are those uses, how it gets permitted, and a joint effort to get that little hummock island opened up to the public. So I don't know if Edmund has anything new on the OCRM side. I know that one of the person that we were working with at OCRM left and went into the private sector. So that's always kind of has a little hiccup there when our point of contact leaves and moves on. Let's see.
There's a point of reference. The Longboro Park that we're talking about is on the peninsula. And it's sort of you call it a spit, right off of that area, just so you'll get some sense of where it is. And it's right on the Ashley River.
That's right. I should have kind of given a little overview there. So it's a small piece of land off of the old Longboro redevelopment site. And it'll provide wonderful access to the Ashley River once we get those agreements completed. So I see in January, we received comments back from OCRM. We're working on those comments through our consultants. And then they're requiring a dock master plan to be created, which I won't bore you with all the details about all of the requirements to construct a community dock, but it's been rather lengthy and we've learned a lot.
Okay, well, thank you. Councilman Gregory, anything else there?
No, but I mean, there is another sort of public-public partnership with the county with respect to the Susie Jackson Freedom Memorial Park downtown as well. So there are, Councilman Parker, there are some existing park partnerships that I think we can build on, as well as create new ones to try to expand the park and recreational opportunities.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Jason and Lori, is there anything, that you wanted to talk about? We've got just a few minutes. Anything that you wanted to talk about from here, since we have a few minutes?
Councilmember Shealy, I'll add, I just got an email, and I don't know if he sent it to you too, but Daniel Strickland, who was in the Maybank tennis group with Lance, he was trying to get in our Zoom call, but couldn't get through. So that may have been who Lance was going to let do the presentation. He said he'd like to try to share information next meeting time. So I'll reach out to him and let him know that. I did work with that group. I know they contacted several council members, and you all had a previously scheduled city council meeting that night, but we met with them as a staff. A lot of the things that they were having some challenges with, getting courts reserved for practices and things like that, we were able to work with them on. So a lot of the needs we were able to address head on, but they've got some other needs which are going to be out there. But I know that he did want to make sure that everyone on the commission knew he apologized for not being able to get through. Technology is great until it's not great. So I understand that too, as I try to work on my technology as well. So the main thing I'll say, and I'm sorry I was off on my camera, there's just a lot of great activity going on right now in our city. Jason and I are seeing children and people all over our parks, on our fields, on our courts. Our weather is already starting to be wonderful again. So it's just really out there that folks want their parks and recreation. They love their parks and recreation. They told us that loudly and clearly when we did the master plan. And I know that everyone on this committee has an ear to that anyway, or you wouldn't be serving in your capacity. So I just want to thank you for your continued interest in parks and recreation. When the big three are up there asking for your attention, it's hard for us to get it too. So we're appreciative of everybody's efforts and trying to make sure that our city is a wonderful place to live, work, and play.
Thank you, Laurie. Thank you for all the work that both you and Jason do. And thank you for working with that tennis group and coming up with some resolutions. We appreciate it, but we will definitely put them on the next agenda and make sure they have a spot. I hate that they couldn't get in this time. But Jason, anything else from the park side?
No, I think that covered everything on the agenda. Just looking forward to bringing back to you all with our consultants a first look at how we enter into some sort of an implementation phase of the master plan.
Okay, well, very good. Well, yeah. Councilmember Parker?
Yes, sorry, you froze. So I can't, I know it's not on the agenda, but I can't leave today without just, obviously, thank you both for everything you do for Parks and Recreation. You know, it's near and dear to my heart, but I know that you are spread thin, and you mentioned that earlier. So I don't want to leave this meeting without talking about staffing and any other issues, in that regard. I know that I see that and feel that personally with my kids' sports here on James Island. And I just, whether we put it on the agenda next time, or if it's something to discuss now or later with HR, as far as just making sure that I know that we really depend on volunteers as far as coaches, but as we know, like you said, these departments are spread very thin. So any input or anything, we can do in that regard, or is this something that we can add as an agenda item, or how are staffing issues? Maybe that should just be my question.
Well, I'll speak for recreation. We have a number of part-time openings right now, and I can't speak to that being a dollar amount problem, Councilmember Parker, because City Council did vote and gave us an increase this year. So we have a fair starting wage for part-time positions, but it is very difficult in this job climate to find folks looking for part-time jobs. I'm already working with HR trying to take some part-time positions and cobble them together to create a couple more full-time positions, hoping that maybe we'll have more candidates interested in that. But we have had several new seasonal positions out there on our job board for the last couple of weeks, and lifeguards. We've had 63 people pop on to read the job description, and we've had 0 applications from that. So I don't think it's that people don't understand, oh, it's a lifeguard, I don't know what that is. Let me see, oh, I don't want to do that. I think everyone knows what a lifeguard position is, but it's just really difficult to find people looking for seasonal employment, part-time employment. And that's a lot of what my department depends on. Yes, we couldn't do a thing without our volunteers, and we use them and need them and all, but we're going to continue to try to do more to reach out to colleges and high schools. I'm considering 16-year-olds as lifeguards this year, which I really don't like that idea, but I want to open pools, so we're going to have to make sure we get them in to get trained. So I think anything we can all do collectively at this city to help get folks in the community interested in going to our jobs, our job boards, and looking at them and making application. We're just competing with everybody else right now, and it's not an easy place to go find those folks. So that's my 2 cents.
Just share that information, share the job board, things like that.
Absolutely, with your neighborhood associations, with anybody on James Island that you're talking to, your constituents. It's a lot different. It was when I was in high school, and my dad said, go find your summer job. And he told me that in January, and I did. And so we just don't see that anymore. And it's tough. So that would be the biggest thing we can do, is help get that word out that the city is hiring, and it can be teenagers as well. So there's a lot of summer opportunities happening.
Okay, great.
Thank you for your interest.
Yeah, and just on our side, as far as the maintenance goes, it's the same scenario. We have lots of jobs open, lots of views. For instance, one of our lead groundskeeper on our ball field cruise, been open 9/30/2021, 2,039 hits on the advertisement, 8 applicants. So it's the tough time to hire folks right now, like Lori said.
Well, and of those 8 applicants, were we able to accept anybody, or?
For that one in specific, there's 2 positions open. We've hired 1 of them.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
and the bottom line is competition, just in terms of what's out there these days. And we're finally at a $14 minimum wage, but these days, folks look at $14 minimum wage as nothing in comparison to what they can get today. So it's a very, very highly competitive job market as well. Because there are tons and tons of jobs out there. But as a city, I think we're getting closer to becoming competitive, but we're just not quite there yet, especially in our leadership positions. I think our leadership positions in particular can use another boost across the board before we start losing them.
Yeah, agree. We all know that, the pay is the biggest issue, but so last thing, and I know it may be going a little far out there, but as far as volunteers go, we know we utilize volunteers for coaching. What about just concessions? Is that, I understand, Lori, that might not be a huge moneymaker for y'all, but is it something that you've looked at? I know that you can't get the part-time employees in there, but is it something that we can look at as a community, utilizing volunteers or anything like that for those type of roles, raising funds for our designated.
Absolutely. I know, that we've worked before with groups from the schools when they've been doing fundraisers and they've wanted to come in and do some booster club sales or things like that. I think at this point we could consider anything. I do have to watch and have someone in because we have city money in the concessions, and I do want to make sure, even though we don't do a whole lot of cooking, most everything's pre-prepared except for some really good popcorn. But we just want to make sure everybody's safe in there. But we've done everything from using volunteers to keep score at games. I mean, but I have to have paid referees and umpires or we won't have folks show, but we would be willing to do anything. And in an area like yours, council member, where the families are there, it does help. It truly does. And we don't always do concessions for money making. We do it as a service because we know we have a hard time grabbing something to eat, for getting from point A to point B. We know parents and kids do too. So that's one of the reasons we do that. But in some of my other parts of the community where I don't have a lot of parental involvement, it will not work. But certainly on James Island, I've given Allison and Robin and then the hats off to go to try whatever will work for you. Robin even found a new gymnastics instructor on her Facebook. So we're not ashamed to try anything to get the word out and let folks know what we've got going and what we're looking for. So anything that can be shared or done, we're willing to consider that.
Okay, and just sort of take that directly to Allison or bring that
Yes.
directly. Okay.
No, you can take that directly to Allison. We'll work with Allison. She's quite competent to do that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Great. Well, thank y'all very much. I think real estate committee is coming up very quickly and we need to be off by 3:30 so they can start. So if there's nothing else that's very, very pressing, I'm going to call the meeting adjourned. So thank you very much for all your time.
Thank you, sir.